Hi everybody, my name is Dr. Maggie Baker. I'm trained as a psychologist and also as a financial therapist, and I'm here to help you deal with your money issues. Everybody has money issues. It's whether you are aware of them or not. And there is help. There's a way to become a money master, and that's a way of enjoying the money you have and not worrying about the money that you don't have. And I would also very much like to hear your comments. I'm sure that some of you have very, very interesting and exciting questions to ask. I think the most important thing to understand about how kids learn about money and form attitudes about it is that they pick up the emotional atmosphere in the household, and that includes money, so that if they see you fighting about it or worrying about it or crying about it, they're not going to understand, and I'm talking about age 5, 6, when they have enough understanding that money is a real thing and you use it to buy things that you want, because they might go to the store and help you buy things, and you might give them your credit card so they can put it in the slot and get a sense of how it works. But their feeling about it is going to dictate how they develop a relationship with money. And if you can, the other thing you need to know about children of that age is that they tend to take things personally. So if you're fighting about money, their first instinct is, did I do something bad? Did I do something wrong? Oh, maybe it's because I needed to buy that mom and dad are fighting, so maybe I shouldn't need anything. And the child, out of a half-truth understanding of what's happening, will make judgments to themselves. And this is all unconscious. They don't know that they're doing this. But it will affect how they see themselves and how they feel about themselves. So it's very important to kind of protect their safe space by, if you have negative feelings about money, or if you have conflicts or differences about it, it's probably best to try to take that out of the children's realm and try to deal with that one with the other at a time when they're not around. And the best thing you can do is make them feel like they're going to be taken care of, that there's enough money and enough resource so that they can get a sense of abundance rather than scarcity. So even if you don't make that much money, you can still convey that you have enough to put food on the table, buy clothes for them, and send them to activities and to school. And I know families that have millions, but they somehow convey, because of the conflict that they have about money and the way they relate to it, that their kids think that they're not, that they don't have enough. And this is particularly true of families who are affluent, because if you're focused on making money, you're always looking up. You're not looking, who has less. You're looking at who has more. Oh, they have X million, so maybe I need to make that. And then it creates a sense in the family that there's not enough, because you're always striving for more. And I think that it's very, very important for kids to learn that you do have enough. And I know that at the other end of life, people have the same worry about, am I going to have enough for retirement? Well, who knows? Nobody knows that number, because nobody knows what's going to happen. But the point is that you need to have enough financial security so that even if the world falls apart, you're at least going to have a place to eat and sleep and have a decent quality of life, even if it may be less than what you had before. One of the hardest things I have to do is, if I'm working with a family where addiction is a problem, getting them to not overgive in that situation, because it will just perpetuate the addiction. And then it's a worse situation because the person's life may really be at stake. And if they have to say no where they've not said no, and somebody might threaten suicide or worse, going on a rampage of some sort, then, they've made their bed, and it's a very, very, very prickly bed to lie in. He didn't know what it was like to feel desire or feel need, because every time he moved, they anticipated that move and gave him what they thought he needed, which was usually more, which was not what he needed. He needed somebody to say, hey, wait a minute, when are you going to start stepping up? And they couldn't do that. So if somebody grows up with that kind of limitless feeling, when they reach they have a limit put on them as an adult, they're insulted. Like, why can't I have that? I always got that. Give it to me. And that won't help them in the real world at all. And then they'll end up feeling hurt, disappointed, and angry because they didn't get what they usually got. And they don't develop a sense of what I call self-efficacy, where they have confidence in their skills. What skills do you build if somebody essentially opens all doors for you? I would rather work with somebody who's been, quote, deprived than work with somebody who is so entitled that they expect the world to turn for them, because they're not going to give that up very easily because they've had no other experience or very little of the other experience, where the other person has had to learn a certain level of adaptation and resilience that somebody who was so babied ends up in a wheelchair and mom thinks that's great. It's very interesting when I think about holidays. It's very, very similar to becoming aware of what your money scripts are. And by that I mean all of the things that you learned about money as a kid, which was probably very indirect, because children pick up emotional atmosphere much more, and emotional messages much more than the actual words. And when you're 5 or 6 and you hear your parents fighting about money, or you learn that you don't have that much money, so you think you're poor, all these messages get encoded unconsciously in your thinking and in your feeling. And often what happens as adults is you remember those feelings. And let's say you grew up poor and money was a real issue. And like, who was it? Like Oprah. She grew up really dirt poor, and she didn't get any presents for Christmas until I think an order of nuns came to her house and gave her something for Christmas. And that is encoded into your brain circuitry when things like that happen. And people do remember that, so that when you grow up and get married and have your own kids, that's not what you want to pass on. So you may tend to go to the other extreme and say, I never want that kind of pain to be in my children, so I'm gonna gift them until there are more packages under the Christmas tree than the height of the Christmas tree. And that swinging of pendulum to the opposite usually has another set of consequences that aren't particularly good. So my advice to the swinging pendulum of, you grew up with too much, so you're not going to give so much. You grew up with too little, you're going to give more. If there's a way that you can become aware of how those truths that you got embedded with are still active in your adult mind, and you can become aware of, wait a minute, is that really such a good idea given the age of my kids and how much money we have and the lessons I want to teach them about giving and sharing? And I think that way it helps people contain the extremes.